Krishna, O Yaduva, O my friend, not knowing your glories, please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times, just like as we relaxed, lay on the same bed, or sat or ate together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. O infallible one, please excuse me for all those offenses.
Text 43. पितासि लोक्ष्यः चराचरस्यः त्वमस्य पूजश्च गुरुगरीयान् न त्वत्समोऽस्ते अभेदिक कुतोऽन्यलोकत्रय भयप्रतिं प्रभाव.
You are the father of this complete cosmic manifestation of the moving and the non-moving. You are its worshipful chief, the supreme spiritual master. No one is equal to you, nor can anyone be one with you. How then could there be anyone greater than you within the three worlds, O Lord of immeasurable power?
Text 44. तस्मात्तं प्रणमे प्रणिधाय कायं प्रसादये त्वाम् अहमिषमिदं पीते पुत्रस्य सखे सखयु प्रिय प्रियायार्हसि देव सोढम्.
You are the Supreme Lord to be worshipped by every living being. Thus I fall down to offer you my respectful obeisances and ask your mercy. As a father tolerates the impudence of his son, or a friend tolerates the impertinence of a friend, or a wife tolerates the familiarity of her partner, please tolerate the wrongs I may have done you.
Text 45. अदृष्टपूर्वं हर्षितोऽस्मि दृष्टा भयेन च प्रव्यथितं मनो मे तदेव मे दर्शय देवरूपं प्रसीद देवेश जगन्निवासः.
After seeing this universal form, which I have never seen before, I am gladdened, but at the same time, my mind is disturbed with fear. Therefore, please bestow your grace upon me and reveal again your form as the personality of Godhead, O Lord of Lords, O abode of the universe.
Text 46. करीतिनं गदीनं चक्रहस्तम् इच्छामि त्वां द्रष्टुमहं तथैव तनेव रूपेण चतुर्भुजेन सहस्रबाहो भव विश्वमूर्ते.
O universal form, O thousand-armed Lord, I wish to see you in your four-armed form, with a helmeted head and with club, quill, conch, and lotus flower in your hands. I long to see you in that form.
Text 47. श्रीभगवानुवाच श्रीभगवानुवाच मया प्रसन्नेन तव अर्जुनेदं रूपं परं दर्शित आत्मयोगात् तजोमयं विश्वमनन्तिदं यन्मे त्वज्ञेन न दृष्टपूर्वम्.
Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, happily I shown you by my internal potency this supreme universal form within the material world. No one before you has ever seen this primal form, unlimited and full of glaring effulgence."
Text 48. न वेदयज्ञः ध्ययनेन दानेन न च क्रियाभिर्न तपोभिरुग्रैः एवं रूपः शक्यः अहं नरीलोके दृष्टुं त्वदनेन कृप्रवीरा.
O best of the Kuru warriors, no one before you has ever seen this universal form of mine, for neither by studying the Vedas, nor by performing sacrifices, nor by charity, nor by pious activities, nor by severe penances can I be seen in this form in the material world.
Text 49. माते व्यथा मा च विमूढभावो दृष्टावरूपं घोरम् इदं ममेदं व्यपतभिः प्रीतिमना पुनस्त्वं तदेव मे रूपमिदं प्रपश्यः.
You have been perturbed and bewildered by seeing this horrible feature of mine. Now let it be finished. My devotee, be free again from all disturbances. With a peaceful mind, you can now see the form you desire.
Text 50. Sanjay उवाच Sanjay उवाच इत्य अर्जुनं वासुदेवस्थतोक्त्वा स्वकं रूपं दर्शयामास भूयः आश्वास्यमास च भीतिम् इनं भूत्वा पुनः सौम्य वपुर्महात्मा.
Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, having spoken thus to Arjuna, displayed his real four-armed form and at last showed his two-armed form, thus encouraging the fearful Arjuna.
अर्जुनोवाच अर्जुनोवाच दृष्टवेदं मानुषं रूपं तव सौम्यं जनार्दन इदानीमस्मि संवृतः सचेतः प्रकृतिं गतः.
When Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, O Janardana, seeing this a human-like form, so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind and I am restored to my original nature.
Text 52. Sri Bhagwanuvacha Sri Bhagwanuvacha Sadurdarshamidam Rupam Drishtvanasi Yanmam Deva Pasya Rupasya Nityam Darshan Kakshana.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, this form of mine you are now seeing is very difficult to behold. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form which is so dear.
Text 53. Naham Vedir na tapsa na danin na chejaya shakya evam vidho drashtum drishtvanasi mam yatha.
The form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not only not by this means that one can see me as I am.
Text 54. Bhaktaya tvananya shakti अहमेवं विधो अर्जुन ज्ञातुं द्रष्टुं च तत्त्वेन प्रवेष्टुं च परन्तप.
My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding.
Text 55. मत्कर्मा क्रिमत्परमो मद्भक्ता संवर्जिता निर्वैरः सर्वभूतेषु यः स मामेति पाण्डव.
My dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shipra Mataji, and thank you, Neelam Mataji. I know these Sanskrit verses can be really difficult, so I'm so thankful and grateful to you that you've made the effort to recite these. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Madhu Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Bhagavati Mataji. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm just trying to... Right, let me just share the screen. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you. 1 minute. I just need to. Okay. Sorry. Okay, can everybody? I think there is some sounds. Do I need to mute everybody, please? I still can hear something. I've just done mute all. I still can hear some sound. So, okay. That's better. Okay. So we are continuing with chapter 11, the universal form. So before we start, we'll just say the prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Okay, thank you everybody for joining in today. So we will continue with our chapter 11. And yeah. So I have taken this slide from His Grace Mukund Hari Prabhu, thankfully. So the summary so far, what we have done is the verses 1 to 8 is Arjuna's request and Krishna's description of his universal form. Then from the verses 9 to 31, Sanjay is describing Arjuna's vision to Dhritarashtra. And then the last couple of days, Krishna, because Arjuna is so much in wonder of what he is seeing. So at this time, then Krishna is saying, I am time, become my instrument. This was the last few verses where Krishna is saying this, I am time, become my instrument. And this is so important because Krishna is showing to Arjuna that already what is going to be the result of the Kurukshetra war. So Arjuna can see in the universal form of Krishna that all the warriors that are present on the battlefield will die, will be killed. And he can see all of this happening. But that does not mean that Arjuna just sits down and thinks that, okay, Krishna, that's it. You've got it all sorted. So I can just sit. And in one of the lectures, in fact, Prabhupada says, Arjuna does not say that I will just sit down and smoke ganja. I don't know if everybody knows what ganja means. Ganja is a form of drug, but let's not go into that. But so the point here is that Arjuna is not saying that, okay, Krishna, you will, you're doing everything, so I don't need to do anything. No, he is still continuing to take responsibility, to do the actions. The only difference here is it is not like a license for Arjuna to just sit back. What is happening here is Krishna is giving him the assurance that Arjuna, you perform your duties, perform your responsibilities, and I will take care of the results. So Krishna is actually showing him the results. Now, what we must, as practicing devotees, what we must learn from here is that why Krishna is doing all these things. He's not concerned with what are the material results. What he is concerned with, how one can fix one's consciousness in devotional service. So for us practicing devotees, what we need to learn is, no matter what the external circumstances may be, no matter what the problems may be, but we have to take responsibility for our own actions. We cannot just sit and think that, Krishna, I have become your devotee now, so why is this happening? No, the responsibility for performing devotional service, for still trying to do the right thing and go towards Krishna is in us. Like Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu spoke about this word nimitta matra. So yes, Arjuna is just an instrument. Krishna is using Arjuna just as an instrument, but even then we have to, as an instrument, take full responsibility and give our 100% to our devotional service, so that eventually with the devotional service that we perform towards Krishna, we will become liberated. And the analogy that our acharyas give us here is of the river Ganga. Now, it is not that the river Ganga does not have any problems or obstacles in her course. There are so many rocks and big stones and whatever else. But she does not break down these rocks. What she does is still, on her way to the ocean, she finds other ways. Now, it may be true that sometimes in our devotional service, we fail and we are not always successful. That does not mean that Krishna is not with us. Krishna is with his devotees at all times. But we have to understand failure in a different way, because what happens sometimes, because we are conditioned souls, we all have our conditioning. Sometimes if success comes easily, we may become proud that this success has come to me because of my own efforts. And at such times, failure is given so that we, after repeated failures, when we get success, we realize that this success is not because of my efforts, but because of the grace of Krishna. And when we realize that we cannot do anything in our life without the grace of Krishna, at that time we are open to fully surrender to Krishna. And that is why sometimes we may see that there are failures, there are obstacles in our course, but we have to be fixed. And this is what in the entire Gita, this is the key essence. But many places you will see that, and one has to understand all these things. Okay. So now today's verse, yesterday Mukundari Prabhu did the verse 34. So today we are doing 1135. And this verse is where Sanjaya is continuing his commentary to Dhritarashtra. So I'll just recite the verse. Sanjaya uvacha etat shrutva vachanam keshavasya kritna jalirvepamana kiriti namaskritva bhuya evaha krishnam sagadgadam bhita bhitaha pranamya. So the translation, Sanjay said to Dhritarashtra. Actually, what I will do is first let us focus on just these, just the verse, the Sanskrit words. Now, why I'm just focusing on the Sanskrit words is imagine the scenario that Sanjay is sitting in the palace with Dhritarashtra, and the words that he is using are so important because Dhritarashtra is blind, he cannot see anyways, and he wouldn't be able to see even if he had the eyes. So Sanjay has to give this description, and the words that he is using is so important. So over here you will see, Etat Shrutva Vachanam Keshavatsya. Vachanam means, so thus, after hearing, Vachanam is the words, after hearing the words of Keshava. Kritna Jalir, Arjuna, Anjali means with folded hands. Vepamana is he's trembling. And Kiriti, now Kiriti is another name of Arjuna actually, but Kiriti also could mean somebody who has a crown on his head, a crown or a helmet. So with folded hands, Arjuna is trembling. Namaskritva bhuya evaha krishnam. So namaskritya is he is offering obeisances. Sa gadgadam bhita bhitaha pranamya. Sa gadgadam is that he's almost choking. Gadgadam is like he's fearful and he's choking. Bhita bhitaha, fearful. Pranamya is he's offering obeisances. Okay. So the translation says, Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, O king, after hearing these words from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the trembling Arjuna offered obeisances with folded hands again and again. He fearfully spoke to Lord Krishna in a faltering voice as follows. The purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. As we have already explained, because of the situation created by the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna became bewildered in wonder. Thus he began to offer his respectful obeisances to Krishna again and again, and with faltering voice he began to pray, not as a friend, but as a devotee in wonder. So, what we are saying here is there is a sudden shift in the relation that Arjuna has with Krishna, isn't it? Because till now, Arjuna was treating Krishna as his friend. He called him his Sakha, and he called him O Keshava, and he never had this this kind of wonder. So in this chapter, when we see the universal form, when Krishna displays his universal form, the feelings that Arjuna has start off with wonder. He's actually wondering at what he is seeing. And in the past few verses, in fact, the feelings start to change even from wonder to almost fear, where he asks Krishna, who are you? Because he has never seen this form before. And when you think about, if you just take a mundane analogy, like two friends. Now, if one of the friend is participating, say, in a fancy dress competition, and he's dressed as something, the other friend is aware that, okay, he's dressed up like this, and that's why he looks like this. But suddenly, if the friend who is dressed in fancy dress and starts behaving completely different, then you start to wonder, what is happening? Who is this? So in the case of Krishna, when he saw the universal form, yes, Arjuna was in wonder. But when he saw this form of where Krishna says that time I am, and I have come to devour everything, at that time, this form is so scary that Arjuna starts becoming fearful. Now, some of the important points that we should understand from this verse, and we will talk about fear in a bit, but what we are noticing here is Sanjay is describing all this to Dhritarashtra. Yes, previously also Sanjay has spoken, and I think we may have covered this, that, the question here is, how come Sanjay was able to see all that is happening without Krishna granting him the special vision? Now, we all know and we heard that for Arjuna to see the universal form of Krishna, he had to be given special eyes. And Krishna says that, right? And that is how Arjuna can see the vision, see this form. So how come Sanjay is able to see this form, although Krishna has not given him this special vision? Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, verse 18.75, it says, Sanjay is saying this, Vyasa prasada shrutavan etad guhyam aham param yogam yogeshwarat krishnat sakshat kathayataha swayam. By the mercy of Vyasa, I have heard these most confidential talks directly from the master of all mysticism, Krishna, who was speaking personally to Arjuna. So, if you see this here, Sanjaya, Vyasadev is the spiritual master of Sanjaya. And thus, because of the grace and mercy of Vyasadev, Sanjaya could see everything that was happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now, Krishna was instructing Arjuna, but through Arjuna, Krishna wanted to instruct the entire world. And he wanted Sanjay to become the medium through which this conversation, which is happening between Arjuna and Krishna, would be transmitted to the entire world. And we all know that Vyasadev is non-different to Krishna. He is the literal incarnation of Krishna. So thus, what is important to understand is, one has to understand Krishna not directly, but through the medium of the spiritual master. And I know that Mukundhari Prabhu very nicely covered this aspect yesterday, that we cannot understand Krishna, we cannot understand the spiritual knowledge directly. We may read, we may understand things, but that may not necessarily be the correct understanding. And that is why we need to take the shelter of a spiritual master who can explain things to us, right? I know yesterday also it was discussed that, how do we understand these things? If we sincerely and seriously perform our sadhana and perform our devotional service, then the Guru and Krishna from within you will guide you. Because sometimes, lots of people say it's easy for Arjuna. He was, Krishna was in front of him and he could take instructions. Krishna is not in front of us, but Krishna is. Krishna is within each and every one of us, and he is willing to guide. But like we discussed earlier, we have to take the steps also. We cannot just sit back and say, well, okay, when the time is right, Krishna will come and guide me. No, we have to also put in the effort. We have to endeavor. and then Krishna will guide us. So he is here. He is with us even now. And we also are, in a sense, in the Kurukshetra, always fighting with all our senses. But Krishna is there. We just have to turn to him. So the important points on these verses were, yes, how was Sanjay able to speak? And the next point was, how come Arjuna, a Kshatriya, and he's fearful? Kshatriyas are never normally fearful because they are trained in such a way. Kshatriyas are trained in such a way that even when they are going to the battlefield, knowing that they will lose the battle, they are not fearful. The reason being that when a Kshatriya loses his life on a battlefield, he knows that he will go to the higher abode. So a Kshatriya is generally never fearful. And it's not an emotion that Arjuna is used to. So how come Arjuna is fearful? So the reason is, like I spoke earlier, Arjuna, when he saw this universal form, it is so powerful, and an analogy can be given that when you see a tsunami, I don't know if anybody has experienced it, probably not. But, we've seen images, we've seen in our lifetimes, there have been tsunamis, or if there is a huge fire, it is natural that you will feel fear, right? And Arjuna is actually seeing the Kala Roop. The Kala Roop of Krishna is very, very fearful. It can instill fear in anybody. So Arjuna here is seeing the Kala Roop, and that is why he is so fearful. Sorry, give me 1 minute. I just need to. Yeah. Now, Krishna in the previous chapters has described himself as. So in verse 10.41, which I think we have, if we remember, the verse says, Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam shrimad urjitam evava tat tad evava gachatvam mama tejo amsa sambhavam. Know that all opulent, beautiful and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Now imagine that everything that's opulent, beautiful, glorious, big, whatever you can imagine, springs from just a spark of Krishna's splendor. So then, can you imagine how glorious the universal form is? What a sight it must have been. We can only imagine it thanks to Srila Prabhupada to give us these purports and explain all these things, and that is why we can see through the vision of the Shastras. We have not been given the divine vision, but we can see through the Shastras. And when Arjuna is seeing this form, especially when he is seeing the Kala Roop, at that time, when he sees all these warriors entering the mouth and being smashed, that's actually a very, very ghastly sight. But what we need to understand is, what is happening over here is, there is a change in the relationship, like I spoke earlier. So now Arjuna has come down to the platform of awe and reverence. After he sees this form, he realizes that this Krishna, who I thought was my cousin, my friend, and I treated him like that. I slept with him on the same bed. We probably had prasad from the same plate. But this Krishna is the destroyer. He's the destructor of the entire universe. Not only is he the creator, but he's also the destructor of the entire universe. And so he is in awe and reverence. And that fear that is in Arjuna is actually a different kind of fear, because in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is describing the divine and demoniac natures in chapter 16, which we will do eventually, so the divine nature is described as abhayam. And Arjuna, we all know, is Krishna's eternal associate. So he has divine qualities. One of the qualities is abhayam. Abhayam means there is no fear. So what Arjuna is experiencing is a different kind of fear. And let's look at that now. So there are different kinds of fear. Like, let's say, fear because of some mistakes made. You know, when we do something wrong, like even say children, if they've done something wrong, they are fearful. Then there is a kind of fear where one does not want to offend a senior out of respect. Like when we are in the school, let's say, you know, most of the students, they don't want to do something wrong in front of the teacher, which is out of respect. They respect the teacher, and so they don't want to do anything wrong. So that's one kind of fear. Then there is a fear where you don't want to displease the beloved. You know, when you are in love, you don't want to do something that will make your beloved unhappy. That's one kind of fear. And then lastly, which we all must discuss, is the intelligent and healthy fear of the material world. Now, in this material world, we all should be fearful, right? What should we be fearful of? Anybody wants to say what is the fear that we have in this material world?
Forgetting Krishna.
Well, yes, very important. But before that, anything else?
Maya. Maya.
Yes, Maya. Maya, yes, that's right. Also, the most important thing is we actually should be fearful of birth, old age, disease, and death.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Because we all are stuck in the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death. You know, yes, we celebrate birth, but Srila Prabhupada used to say birth is one day closer to death, isn't it? The day you're born, your days start getting counted for you to die, because eventually that is the eternal truth, that you will die, right? And also, when we are in this material world, there is always the threefold miseries. I'm sure we've spoken about the threefold miseries. Anybody wants to call out what are the threefold miseries in this material world?
Adi
Oh,
Bhautik,
we are
Adi
going
Daivik,
Adi Devik and Adi.
That's
Adi,
right.
yeah.
That's right. So there is a fear. There is a fear from our own body. When we say our own body, there could be physical ailments, mental ailments. There could be so many things, right? Then there is a fear from people around us. It could be from other living entities, even mosquitoes, you know, like mosquitoes biting you is causing you so much distress, right?
Sorry, Mataji, I can't hear because of the background noise.
Sorry, I will
Have you
mute.
got background noise? I can hear some background noise.
Sorry, I will mute all. Is that any better? Is that any better? Still, there is some noise.
I
I've
can
just
still
muted.
hear them.
Yeah, I've just muted everybody. I'm not sure. Can everybody please mute yourselves? Thank you very much. Thank you. So, so yes, we have these kinds of fear. Then we have the fear which comes from the material nature itself. Like we spoke about the tsunami, we spoke about the fire. We are going through right now this, it's a great fear. This coronavirus, this COVID is, you know, something which it is a very, very fearful situation we are in because we've never faced something like this before. So there is always this fear that we have. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said once, he said, the problem with you young American boys and girls is that you are not afraid enough of Maya. You know, so there's these fears. Then there is the fear of Maya that, you know, at any moment we can be trapped by Maya. Now, Maya Devi is just performing her duty. She's not doing anything wrong. Like, you know, when we think about a prison warden, right? The prison warden, he is in the prison, the prisoners will be fearful of him. Of course, that fear is slightly different in the sense that that fear is because the prison warden has power. if the prisoners all rebel, then it'll be changed, the tables will be turned, and the warden will start getting scared of the prisoners. But the point here is that the prison warden is just performing his duty. But when he goes home, when he is away from his responsibilities and duties, he is a loving father, a loving husband, a good person, Same way, Maya Devi is just performing her duty. She has to do this in order to, test all of us, to see whether we are ready for the next step. But when she goes back to, when she is with Shivji, at that time she is completely different, isn't it? She's not the same. So it's roles that they are playing, right? But now here, Krishna comes out of love, and love is a higher principle. So Arjuna is not fearful, thinking that something bad will happen to him. That's not why he's fearful. So his fear is on a level of where he is suddenly understanding how great Krishna is and how powerful Krishna is. So it's almost like a respect and like reverence and awe. That's what it is, But he understands that all this that Krishna is displaying is for me, because Krishna is with me, Like when Narsingadev appeared, everybody was afraid. Even Hiranyakashipu was afraid at that time when he saw the form of Narsingadev, right? And we all know the past time that even after Hiranyakashipu was killed, none of the demigods were willing to approach Narsingadev, because his form was so fearful and he was so angry at that time. But Prahlad Maharaj was not afraid at all, right? And the reason being that the relation that you have, the relation that a devotee has with Krishna. Like Prahlad Maharaj, what relation did he have to Narsingadev? He knew that he is my protector. He has come to save me. He's come for my well-being. So I'm not afraid at all. 5-year-old Prahlad was not afraid of Narsingadev at all. And the demigods and others could not approach Narsingadev, but Prahlad could. So same way, Krishna is coming here not to frighten us, to scare us, but sometimes some things need to be done in order for us to fix our mind constantly in Krishna consciousness. Because once your mind is fixed in Krishna, then there is no fear. There is absolutely no fear, right? And that is what we all have to practice. And there is this beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam, which is talking about Ambarish Maharaj, where it says, this verse is really, really nice, one of my favorites actually. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vachamsi vaikunta gunarna varnane. Now, why we give example of Ambarish Maharaj? Because he used all of his senses in the service of Krishna. Each and every sense he used in the service of Krishna. With his eyes, he would take the darshan. With his hands, he would sweep the temple. I mean, there's lots of details and we can go into that at some point. But the point here, what I'm trying to make is that when you are in Krishna consciousness and constantly taking shelter of Krishna, then there is no fear. And that is why Prabhupada and our acharyas would say, Bhajaure man Shri Nanda Nandana. So when your mind is constantly taking the names of Shri Nanda Nandana, which is Krishna, your mind is constantly taking shelter of Krishna, then there is no fear. Right? Okay. So, I don't know what the time is. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's going a bit over time, but I think the chapter 11 verses are so long. We go on with the verses till 8:10, I think, 10 past 8. So I'm sorry about this, but yeah, just a few more things I want to discuss. So now in the previous chapters, in chapter 10, when Krishna is describing the opulence of the Absolute, and he's describing how he is the best of everything, right? So what nobody can do, the Lord can do. And here there is a very interesting story about, I'm sure we all must have heard it, but yeah, there is a very interesting story about Shivji, right? Now, Lord Shiva is considered the most dhira. He doesn't easily lose his composure. He doesn't easily, he can control his senses, right? But when he sees Mohini Murti, what happens? Lord Shiva loses all his composure. Even in front of his own disciples, Shiva is, running behind Mohini Murti. And we all know that Mohini Murti is Krishna himself, right? So what nobody can do, because Krishna is the best of everything. So because he is the best in everything, even as an instiller of fear, he is the greatest. Because Krishna is the best in everything, right? So, but like we've understood that this fear that Arjuna has is a different kind of fear. Now, I'm sure that we've heard in, some religions, there is this fear in some religions, which to a certain degree actually is okay, because that's the first step. Why is it the first step? Because if you have fear of doing something wrong, that you will get some punishment for it, at least you will not commit any sinful activities. And when you don't commit sinful activities, then that's the first step. You have to remember that in everything, when a child goes to school, he cannot directly go to the year 10 and pass out. He has to go to year 1 and 2 and 3, and that way. In our spiritual path also, we have to take different steps. Yes, there may be pure devotees who don't need all these, but I'm talking for myself. The first steps have to be taken. And sometimes, it may be that first step is where I look at Krishna in awe and reverence, and I think that if I commit sinful activities, then I will have to bear the consequences. Like a citizen, he knows the rules and regulations. He might, contemplate committing something wrong. Like, let's say, even when we are driving, such a mundane example, but when we are driving, and when we are not on the motorway but on a side road, and we think, oh, there's no cameras, there's nobody watching, let me just break the signal, let me just go. But at the back of our mind, we do know that if we do something wrong, then we will be in trouble. So that fear at least instills in us this idea that I must not do something wrong. So that sometimes can be the first step that one takes on their spiritual journey. Of course, here what we are talking about Arjuna is completely different. But the point, it was very important to address this, because one may think that Arjuna is a pure devotee of the Lord. So why is he becoming fearful? And I hope that the way I've spoken about fear is kind of, makes sense that why Arjuna has become fearful. I think I should stop here because it is 8:45. And if there is any comments, any questions, any corrections, you can unmute yourselves, please. And yeah.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Talking about fear, especially with the situation with COVID, there are a lot of people who are very, very fearful. How do we reassure them? As a devotee, we know, obviously we take precautions, but everything is in Krishna's hands.
Mataji, what is very important to understand is that we have a duty towards our material bodies, because this body is not ours, it is Krishna's. So yes, everything is in Krishna's hand. Does not mean that we don't be careful. Yes, we will take all precautions, we will be extremely careful. And in cases where you don't feel comfortable about doing some things, you must not think that, Krishna will protect me, so let me just forget about it. Like our acharyas give the analogy that just because you're a devotee does not mean you enter the forest and say, I'm going to have a fight with a tiger. You
Okay.
don't need to do that. So what this situation where we are in with this COVID and coronavirus, the thing is, nobody knows anything about it. And so the best thing to do is precautions, prevent. Wherever you feel that, if let's say, if I have some problems or I'm not feeling comfortable about doing something, it is best to be safe. Although we depend on Krishna, but Krishna does not want us to take risk, because this body is the temple of Krishna. So there is no need to take undue risk at all.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about reassuring other people who are very, very fearful.
The thing, Mataji, like we discussed, is that when we are fearful, if we are devotees, if we are Krishna conscious, we take shelter of Krishna, and that elevates our fear to a certain degree, and any in it would be in any spiritual path. Like, I'm not saying that, anybody who is fearful, the only shelter we have is taking shelter of the higher beings, because what else can we do, especially in this current situation when nobody has the answers. The doctors don't have the answers, the politicians don't have the answers. So the only reassurance that we can give to everybody is that, try your best to be safe. Take shelter of the holy name, take shelter of Krishna, but have faith that whatever Krishna has planned for you, me, and everybody is the best. Krishna will never do anything that is not right. That faith one has to develop. But also, seeing the situation, one needs to understand that we are so not in control of anything. We are not the controllers. The controller ultimately is the Lord. And so the only thing we can do is take shelter of the Lord.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? No questions. Looks like everybody is quite satisfied with what we have discussed. So that's good. So then maybe we can end our discussions today. There's nothing on chat as well. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you so
Mataji.
much,
Thank
Mataji. Thank
you.
you. Hari Bol. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Mataji.
Krishna.
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, and all the devotees.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.